What is going on with all my YouTube friends, all my Patreon friends, all my audio enthusiasts? We're starting something new. I'm gonna start a monthly mini series based on different kind of topics. And the first one is gonna be how to get into being an audio technician. I don't wanna use the language around audio engineer because I technically am not an audio engineer. I did not go to school for any form of engineering. I didn't go to school for anything. But I do have a fairly practical approach that I think is gonna help. And so I do wanna spend this first month looking at what I would do if I had to get back into the music industry, if I had to get back into the scene, or if I wanted to get back into the scene as an audio technician. I'm gonna start with a bit of my story and how I got into it, and I'll share with you little blips of my career as it stretched for about 8 or 10 years, give or take. And it still kind of bleeds into my life a whole bunch outside of this YouTube channel. So if this is your first time checking me out, I appreciate you being here. These videos will drop weekly and they're gonna be early drops on Patreon if you just can't wait and if you gotta come join us there. The link is in the description box. We do have a sponsor for today's video and I will jump to that in a little bit. But I really just wanna have a conversation around being a technician, an audio technician, a stagehand maybe, a stage manager. You can kind of apply these practices to anything that's in the arts and production kind of field, right? So I'm really looking forward to getting started with this, and let's see what we can do. And by the end of this video, I also want you to have a firm grip on if this is the industry for you, because I know a lot of people think it's just rock and roll and parties and neon lights and everything, and that's not exactly the whole truth. There's a lot of work that kind of has to go into it, and there's a lot that gets overlooked in the kind of exciting newlywed kind of stages of this business. So by the end of this, I'm hoping that you'll have a firm grip on how to kind of get started, what my story was and how I got started and what I would do if I had to do it again. And like I say, if this is for you or if this isn't, maybe we can save you a few bucks and a little bit of heartache on the way. So we have 5 ways to get into being an audio technician. Step number 1. Be familiar with your music scene, man. Get out there. This is the most fun of the whole thing. Before you're jaded and before you hate going to see performances, go see as many concerts as you can. And I'm not saying go spend all your money. I'm not saying, you know, ditch your responsibilities and stuff, but get out there and see what's going on. See who's active, see who's performing, see where you can perform and what kind of music you like. And don't limit yourself to just the music that you like either. There's lots of fantastic artists out there who you might have really, really strong relationships with. And in my experience, I've found that it's a lot more exciting to be there with people that you vibe with and people you get along with than people who have any other sort of reasons to be able to hire you. Maybe it's just a paycheck, or maybe they just have a bill to fill kind of thing. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? Being a part of the scene is really important. So being supportive, going to the open mics, going to any of the acoustic events in town, any of the art forms that you can get in front of and you can start meeting people, these are going to be your biggest kind of assets in the early stages of your networking. You're gonna be looking for anything from art exhibits to performances to maybe spoken poetry. Maybe there's a DJ or a local event where someone's speaking. Any of these that have microphones and speakers, these are gonna be your best friends and you're gonna start wanting to show your face around them. Get to know all the musicians and all the people that are active in the scene in your city. You don't only just wanna fall in love with their music, but you wanna fall in love with their vision, where they're going, where they've been, what they find important. Maybe they won't value someone like a stage manager. Maybe they don't see the investment in that. Maybe they've never been in an opportunity where they've needed it, and that's okay. It's not for everyone. It's a big responsibility to be able to foot the bill for extra technicians now, right? And check out different events, you know, especially local events. Start with the ones that you know. Maybe it's a building you like. Maybe you like going to a particular bar that has events. Go like schedule nights to go see their performances and catch it all. Like I was saying, go catch a comedy night there, catch a band playing, a local band, a traveling band, and see what you like from it and just show your face there. Get into the community, you know, contribute if you can. Give these musicians tips if they ask for it. You know, like tell someone you enjoyed their set. Like these are all positive things to get you remembered in the music scene. Tip number 2, be familiar with your city's amenities and the different performance centers and options that they have for the different performers. Getting to know the rooms is gonna be really important, and that's kind of gonna be a future endeavor that we'll get into. But you wanna find places that you just genuinely enjoy listening to music, listening to art in, looking at art. Maybe it's visually appealing, but there's some rooms that just have a certain sound to them and they'll keep bringing you back, and that's important. Meeting the right people is still gonna trump that every single time, because it's not always gonna be your choice what room you're in, and you're not always gonna get to pick the most perfect environments, especially if you're just getting started in this kind of an industry. So appreciating the rooms and understanding why you like the rooms, like I say, is gonna come a little later, but you gotta start meeting people. You just gotta start meeting people. That's the big thing. That's the biggest takeaway of this whole video. Start meeting people. Once you've started to kind of build a list and a network, you've got some names, maybe some people remember your names, maybe you're going and you're following a few acts or a few production companies through town, start finding out all the production companies. See what everyone offers. Is there a rental company in town? Is there a small, medium, large? Do they facilitate the stadiums and the big events, or do they just do the small and medium-sized events like most of what I did? You got to meet all these people. These are all people that you can start checking off on your list. And it's not like you're applying for jobs. You don't even know if you like them yet. And they definitely don't know if they like you yet. But you got to know what's out there. It's like any kind of job search. You got to see what's available so you can start tailoring your resume for that kind of business, that sector, that niche maybe. You know what I mean? Once you've gone to enough of these events and if you do start meeting people, shaking people's hands, remembering people, maybe you see their trucks and it's got their logo on the side, you'll start recognizing the different crews maybe, or the different teams, the different types of speakers they bring out, if these are the things you're looking for. And you want to kind of see where they're getting hired, right? So maybe you like this band and it's easy to say, hey, where are you guys playing next week? And they say, well, just go check us out on Facebook. It's not very often you see a sound team saying, hey, we're at this bar this week and this casino next week and this and that. So you kind of have to ask, you have to pry a little bit. And this usually isn't too invasive. You can start with something simple, and we'll get to a few more of these. You can say, hey man, I really dug your mix. I really like how you approached it with this band. Where are you guys playing next? When can I see you mixing again? Like, these are huge compliments for sound techs, right? The other side of this that you're gonna wanna pay attention to is who's getting hired. Because that's the other thing. It's kind of like a lot of people can get into this business just with a paycheck. They can buy their way into it, but it doesn't mean you get hired all the time. And I kind of want to learn from someone who's busy. You know what I mean? The proof's in the pudding in this industry, that kind of a vibe, right? So now you're meeting some technicians. Maybe it's a monitor technician, maybe it's a front of house technician. This is all great. This is all fantastic. That you do have to take a couple things into consideration. And I don't want to sound blunt, but this is my experience. Just remember that they're working. They are at work still. They've probably been there hours before the doors even opened, and they're gonna be there hours after, if not the day or another day after. And you just gotta understand that sometimes they're busy, sometimes they don't wanna talk, but it's not a race. You wanna be in these people's good books, right? And if they're busy, this is a good thing. This shows that they're involved, they're doing the right things, they're hopefully getting paid for their work, you know, all the steps that you eventually want to get to, right? But start slow and don't be shy. You know, like I say, it's a great place to start with telling a front of house technician that you really like the mix that they had. Say maybe you've seen the band a few times. You don't want to lie to these people. Don't take it like I'm trying to tell you to steer something in there or pander to them. That's not what we want. But maybe you've seen a band 2-3 times and you've seen this sound tech or 2 shows and you liked it more than the others. That's fine to say. You don't need to throw anyone out under the bus. They might be a partner in the future, but maybe you like this particular approach more. Maybe you want to have future conversations around it. How did you approach the sounds, the drum kit sounds, the vocal sounds, whatever, right? These are all great kind of foot in the doors for starting these conversations. These are complimentative, if that's a word, without being too intrusive, right? These are compliments you're offering. This is like the flirting. It's the flirting stage of the relationship. So step number 3, and I'm kind of gonna like loop back to the last one a little bit because I just think that meeting the technicians is worth having its own whole point, not just being a part of the amenities and what your city offers for technicians and jobs and et cetera, but actually getting to know the technicians is a whole nother trade. And the thing is you really want to be conscious of what these people do and what deals they have. And a lot of them are unspoken, especially if you're in like a hometown scene, if you're in a small city. I grew up in a city of about 100, 110,000 people. There's only so many production companies in town, and you don't want to immediately start lowballing them, quote unquote, or, you know, taking clients from them if they've been working for them forever and a day, especially if you're just coming up. Like, these are people that you want in your corner, right? So a lot of technicians, I'm telling you this right now from personal experience, have either spoken or unspoken deals with these sound companies already. And if the first call goes to them when this band gets booked, you don't want to get in the way of that. And so this is just something that you want to be conscious of. But this is also something that you can follow. Because if a band is active on social media and if they're performing lots, you can go and get your face out there and you can see these performances lots and hopefully see reoccurring sound teams or technicians, and you can start building an ear towards how their sounds and their mixes and their speakers and all their equipment sounds, right? Because hopefully one day this is going to be you behind this console and you're going to have a little bit of a head start, kind of knowing what to expect and where the baseline is, at least knowing what your reference is. You're building a reference on speakers you're probably not accustomed to listening to. And to top up to one of my previous points in step number 2 as well, meeting technicians and asking where their next event is a great way to compliment a tech. You're also giving them the heads up that you're going to be there. Expect to see my face, man. You know what I mean? Or woman, who's ever doing sound now. I'm just relying on my crutches here. But ask them. And, you know, what a compliment. I want to hear you mix again. You know, this is hopefully going to lead to, I want to learn from you. I appreciate what you do with this space, and I want to learn how you did it. So I want to come back and see you work with this band. And maybe they don't have a job for a little while, and that's okay. Well, who else are you working with? You know, you can pry a little bit. These are all fine questions. It's not like you're asking them how much money you make or how many speakers you own. These are poor questions, right? But getting to build a relationship, build dependency, show your face a whole bunch more. These are all important steps. These are vital steps when it comes to technicians. There's a lot of trust that needs to be built. Like for some people, this is their only job. Maybe they've remortgaged houses, properties, you know, to afford all this equipment. Lots of people, we call them like road warriors. They don't have home lives, or they can't seem to settle down and have these home lives. So like a lot of people, they take this very, very close to their heart. This is their life, right? So you really don't want to feel like you're trying to take away from them. You want to compliment, you want to work your way into a trusting relationship where you can ask, you know, vital questions, maybe problematic questions, something that you're struggling with and you want a mentor to help you through. You want to be in a situation where you feel comfortable asking these things. So this is where I'm going to cut to my story. So when I was 16, I went to a music school and I learned how to play guitar and I learned how to be a performer. And the school had students that played drums, keyboards, vocals, guitars, bass, everything. So the owner of the place started putting these small bands together, and he would hire out a local sound team from a group called Impact Sounds, and they would do everything, that all our performances, didn't matter where we were. If it was the local fair or if we had played, we got booked at like a department store opening or something. Like we had Halloween shows, New Year's shows, and it was always the same sound team. And we would play other events, maybe a one-off, maybe a city event. And I always found that it just wasn't the same with these other technicians, but with this Impact Sounds, it was really good. And when I was 16, I was sitting in the crowd watching one of these other kid bands play, and I can't remember what song they were covering, but there was this big delay that happened. The singer hit this great note, and this big delay happens, and the guitar solo comes ripping over, and that was it for me. I had to find out what was going on. So I marched up to the sound guy, his name was Rob, and I just casually, awkwardly introduced myself to him. And I say, hey man, I really like what you're doing. Like it sounds great. It's awesome. I love it. I think it's so interesting. I said, can I get you something to drink? Like, is it okay if I hang out and just kind of watch for a little bit? And he said, yeah, sure. I'll take a light beer. And I said, oh, I'm only 16. So I can't buy you the beer. I'm really sorry. And he said, that's fine. He said, I'll take a ginger ale. And so I grabbed a ginger ale and we sit down, and it was awesome, man. He was telling me about balancing vocals and the different parts that make up a vocal from like a frequency standpoint, maybe how the bass guitar and the regular guitar interact with each other. And these were all things that I could apply to being a young musician, but it was also building skills for me to be a sound technician later on in my life, right? In my adult life more so. So at the end of the night, I asked my parents, because they were my ride, if it was okay if I helped them stay to clean up. I learned how to wrap cables, and that was all I asked to do. I said, hey, do you mind if I do anything? I can push boxes into the truck. If you need me to wind cables, I know how to wind cables. We learned that in lessons. Give me a roll of tape. I know how to leave the little tab at the end. And these are all things that we'll go through later. Oh man, I'm excited. I love this. I love this industry so much. I could sit here and talk about this all day long. But that was my first quote unquote bit of experience in the field. I might not even been 15 or 16 at the time. I might have been 15 because I wasn't driving myself. But nonetheless, you know, I just offered to be a little bit valuable in that moment. I said, hey, let's get you out of here a little faster. Let me wrap cords for you. I already know how to. And if I don't know how, I'll just ask, or I'll just put it down. And let's get you out of here, right? When's the next show? You know, that was a New Year's gig specifically. It was on New Year's Day. And we had another one for, I think it was Mother's Day coming up. I said, you know, hopefully I get to see you at Mother's Day. I'll be there a little early. Maybe I can help push some boxes around. And this is me building value with the relationship that I've built, right? So that's why I love that story. I love my introduction to my mentor in this field, and I love to share it. But I can't emphasize how simple it can be to get in there. And I didn't have any means for a resume. I don't even think I had a license. I remember my first real gig I was kind of a stage manager for. It was a Kenny Shields and Streetheart. It was Mercury, which is a Queen cover band from Germany, I believe, and another Canadian band called Honeymoon Suites. And I had to get a ride to that show as well. I had to get a ride in because I couldn't drive myself, but I just volunteered my time. I wanted to learn. I expressed very clearly that I wanted to learn, and I was very interested and tried to be respectful about it. And that's the way that I got introduced to it. And then I worked in the industry for almost 10 years. So Anyway, let's keep going. Let's keep this going. So number 4, understanding what sound actually is. So when you hear a bass drum, this is a bass pit, and I'm gonna probably do a bad job explaining this. There's gonna be lots of great people that'll do a better job explaining this, but for the sake of the conversation, a bass drum has placements on like a staff of paper in the bass register, as opposed to the treble register. It's a bass instrument, but that doesn't mean it's only bass sounds that make up all the frequencies on the bass guitar. So the bass guitar, in my opinion, and for argument's sake, is more of a high-mid instrument. And there's parts, you know, like one of the standards in live is about 800 hertz, maybe 1K, and these are examples I'll give you in the future. But for the conversation, these are like punch points in the bass that give it clarity. Now you can hear the pick and the individual notes. So understanding that bass guitar and like bass notes and bass frequencies, low frequencies, are not the same thing. And these are things that you can explore. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube. You can see in the like white noise or the frequency creators, if you have someone, or if you can find an app where you can drag it around, it'll be like dog whistles to like your kind of TV static in your mid, and then your real low sub frequencies. Like these are all things to just start building an ear for and start appreciating in not only in the music that you listen to, but in the performances around you. Maybe just in the speaker quality. Does the little speaker in your kitchen get out the same bass notes that your, I don't know, your man cave setup in the basement has with all the subwoofers and everything? Like what are those differences? Is it really crispy top end stuff? Is it really low end stuff? Is it everything is really mid focused, like on a phone audio when you play it out loud? Like these are things to start looking for in music. Same with a bass drum. You hear a bass drum and a drum kit, and the note on the staff is low, but it's got a lot of attack to it. You're literally driving your foot into a pedal, into a beater head, and it's got a ton of top end to it. And that clarity in that top end takes away, or it's easier to hear, it's easier to produce than that whoop, whoop, whoop of the air moving from a big drum. And that's important, an important part of the bass drum or the kick drum as well, but there's a lot of top end that happens to give that clarity. And if you listen to any metal record, anything with really fast double kicks, you almost hear the low end pull away the faster the drum goes, because you just want the clarity of the rhythm, whatever it is, right? So these are things to start trying to appreciate and trying to start understanding on your own time, because it's not, I don't want to like say that people won't take the time to teach you, but that's just not something you want to show up and start asking questions around. And I'm going to have a whole day of that planned already. But for the sake of today's conversation, start learning about frequencies and how they differ from notes and placements on a musical staff. This video is brought to you by Newer Professional Lighting and Photography Equipment. Newer sent me a 100-watt LED video light. It sits at 5600K. It's a Bowens mount continuous lighting system with a stand, softbox, and remote. And this thing has been my favorite upgrade to my studio over the last little while. And I'm just not just blowing smoke, man. I did a whole video on it. I'll tag it up here. It's shaved off a bunch of my editing time, as well as it's made my videos look nice and crispy and a lot more consistent, because with the light and the size of it and how good it works with my camera, it doesn't matter if it's daytime or nighttime or whatever. My outside lights don't seem to bother it. None of my other lights in my studio seem to bother it. So for my room, in my 10x12 room, this light has been fantastic. So Newer, thank you so much for the light. Check them out. I've got the link in the description box. My friends, let's get back to the video. And tip number 5, get started, man. Go out there and get started. Find a way to start working. Volunteer some time. We'll go through a few examples of some places that I used to volunteer just to get my foot in the water. But just get out there and do it. Ask to help clean up. Learn to wrap some cables and tape some cables and leave a courtesy tag on the end. Learn how to pull a speaker up a ramp into a 1-ton cube truck. Like, these are all skills that other people are tired of doing. And you can help, so just get started. If you've gone through all 4 steps, 3.5 steps of this, you should be comfortable asking one of these technicians, one of these bands, to help wrap cables, load some stuff into a vehicle. Hopefully they don't think you're gonna steal from them. You know what I mean? This is all the relationship building stuff you got to rely on now, right? From my personal story, like I said, I just asked if I could wrap cables. I very quickly learned that that's a easy way to get dirty and full of the dark stuff that's wrapped in the plastic cables and tape and dust and beer off the floor. But hey, someone's got to do it. And I'm trying to build value in my time here, so it may as well be me. Some places that I volunteered at early in my career was band rehearsals. Some of the bands that I really fell in love with, I just asked if I could come and see how they did things, how they set up headphones, how they set up their rentals, microphone placements, singer placements. I learned a lot about mic technique. I learned a lot about balancing acoustic instruments and electric instruments. And these are all in different environments now. Maybe it's someone's basement, maybe it's a friend's garage, a parent's garage, maybe they rent a storage unit. But now you're learning how to overcome these different scenarios and still have a band get a good mix and have a good performance in all these different kind of scenarios, right? So the band's putting themselves in that, sometimes out of necessity, but sometimes on purpose. And if you can start learning these hardships and overcoming these mountains early, it's nothing but value, nothing but value. If you have any lesson centers or schools of music in town, they often hold recitals and rehearsal spaces or rehearsal performances, I guess. And they often need technicians to at least run faders, at least push the vocals back and forward, turn on and off the MC mic with a wireless mic. You'll learn lots about mic technique around speakers, like dealing with feedback. Maybe you have to pan someone when he walks in front of the house speaker left. You have to pan him to the right so it doesn't feed back. These are all opportunities that you can take to learn on the spot. Maybe you get paid a few bucks, maybe you might get a few free meals, but it shouldn't cost you anything to do these. They're probably going to have the equipment already, and they're going to be glad to have someone take that load off their hands, right? There's also lots of art functions that need like a DJ or just need some background music. And this is a great way to maybe get like a few bucks to pay for a rental, maybe for your time or for lunch, and at least start valuing your time. But again, having a hands-on, practical approach to getting music to broadcast to an audience or someone speaking to an audience, right? And you're gonna start learning how to get people how to communicate with people to get them to speak into the microphone so it actually projects the way you need, instead of holding the wireless microphone way down here, right? So these are all little things that you can build as value and kind of resume builders for yourself without costing anyone too much time and costing yourself any money, right? Another way to jump in and get your feet wet and get started is something called a local crew. And most cities should have some form of this. And this could be at any of your arenas, your bigger stadiums, your bigger performance centers. So local crew is a supplemental crew that is usually the same every week. They're sometimes unionized, they're sometimes by contract. But every time something rolls through your stadium, this crew shows up to help the tour crew, right? So this would be the crew that travels with bands, different artists. Some of the big ones around here are like curling events, and they'll come with their technicians, their lead help, their lead hands, their lead engineers, and they just need bodies to come and help. And this is a great way to start getting exposure and again start building relationships with other people in the scenes, because a lot of technicians will do this as supplemental work to make cash during the week or have like a ongoing job that they can kind of bank on. And it's a great way to show your face and show determination, show dedication, and really get like around the biggest of the big and the best of the best when it comes to equipment. Like that's all stuff that I've never worked for someone directly that they could afford. So like if you really want to see what the tour equipment is like, or like what the top of the food chain is like in production, you know, these big events are really the only way to see that sometimes. Another positive to these are their guaranteed paychecks. You don't always make very much money in the beginning, and it's a lot of early mornings and late nights and lots of hard work. So sometimes just having a paycheck just to kind of keep you on pace, it just, sometimes it is what it is. Like you're probably not getting into it at least at first for the money, but having a paycheck really helps. It's almost like affirmations for the moment. And like you're getting paid to learn, right? You're getting paid to learn how this like 150-foot feeder cable works. And if you can manage that, you can manage a 25-foot range plug. You know what I mean? You can manage plugging that in and manage and not having knots. You can manage plugging that in without having knots and without making a big mess if you can do it on the 150 big giant cord at the stadium, right? And if any of you go and check out a local crew, you'll understand what I mean really quick. And the fun thing is when you start running into techs that you've seen at other events and they see you coming and working on the big shows, they're going to be excited. And if you've done a good job in making sure that they remember who you are, or at least recognize you a little bit, this is an easy in. Because it's not always a friendly environment for everyone. There's a lot of nerves in the air. Lots of people are anxious. Lots of people are there to try to make ends meet. So it always feels good to have like a tribe and a trustworthy face in front of you. So if you've done a good job of introducing yourself to people and meeting people in the industry, this is probably just gonna be another place for you to meet with them and to start working with them. There is a couple things that I do want to clarify about local crew. So this is not a free backstage pass. This is not an opportunity to see a whole bunch of concerts, and this is not an opportunity to meet any celebrities or get any guaranteed clout or any of the things, like any of the ego things that will come along with concerts and rock and roll, as we call it, or whatever. Like this is not a guarantee of those. This is a guarantee of a lot of hard work that you're going to get paid for. and you might get underpaid for it, if I'm just being perfectly honest. Like, you know, even at $18, $20, $25 an hour, this is a lot of work. And it's a lot of hours, and sometimes road techs are tired, sometimes they're not super friendly. So, you know, you kind of gotta balance the two, right? So I just want to make it very clear though, like, you will not meet famous people, and you will not get a whole bunch of free concerts. You might see parts of it, you might see bits and pieces of it, but like, you're there to work, you're there to do a job, right? And these are the important things to understand as to why you're getting into this industry. And if you follow my work, if you follow my channel, like, I'm obviously very passionate about this field. I've met a lot of very, very beautiful people, a lot of very, very smart and gifted people, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. I would take that, again, a lot of those experiences, I would take that again in place of a lot of the maybe a few of the names I've met, a few of the hands I've shook. Like, none of that matters. I didn't change anything for them. I didn't do anything so granular that it affected their performance. So like, it really, that side of it doesn't matter. It's, did I capture the emotion in the moment correctly? Did I relay that and give that to the audience? Because now you're becoming that funnel point between performance and audience. And that's really where in my opinion, the magic happens. Sure, you need good input. You have to have good input to have good output. But if you mess up that output, then the good input doesn't really matter, right? Does that make sense? So like, there's an art to it, and there's a care to it, and the abuse of that is really appealing to a lot of people, and it's really blinding. But it really shouldn't be the reason why you're getting into something like this, and you're gonna burn yourself out if there's no passion behind it. You'll burn yourself out. I'll just promise you that. Kind of an additional tip and a free tip I want to add at the end of this as well is, early on in your career and when you first start, try to get into a few rehearsals. And I know I talked about this earlier, but think about a few benefits from this. Not only can you start maybe bringing some gear that you purchased, or maybe you're excited about, maybe you rented and you want to get your hands on, you start getting familiar with bigger consoles and reasons to have bigger consoles, and maybe now you're wowing a band too. You know, in my experience, I went out of my way to lug a 24-channel analog console. It was an Allen & Heath GL2400. I lugged it into my friend Kevin's parents' basement, and I plugged in a set of headphones for everybody. I plugged in multiple microphones for everybody. And this, for me, was a learning experience. You know, I didn't have a full band that could perform and practice at this level for me to just play around with and find sounds for. And it was extremely rewarding for the band, because they said, well, they'd never had a rehearsal with kick drum in it and a nice vocal blend and all the guitars the way they should be. And these are things that I'm just learning in the moment, and we're trying to sort out together, but there's no pressure. And maybe it was a bit of free labor, but they were excited to help. You know, they bought dinner and drinks, and they brought me back for the next show. And that solidified a solid career with that band for me, that every time they had a gig, I was the first person they called. And that was really important. They got me a lot of festival experience. They got me lots of like local show experience. They got me lots of multiple bill experience, where there's more than one band and you have to accommodate all of them, or you have to work around all of them. I wouldn't have gotten that if I didn't show my value and my interest early. And one way that I did that was in my free time, donating my free time. And I'm not trying to step on other people's toes. This was a band that wasn't committed to anybody. They were just starting out, and we spent a long time performing together and working together. And I learned a lot of very, very valuable lessons with that group. And we are still very close to this date. They're not a group anymore, but I still interact with all the members, and it's fantastic. I'm also not saying don't help your friends, and you might have friends and family in the industry who have deals with these sound technicians, and from time to time, it might happen that you quote unquote take work away from them, but like, you got to help your friends and your family. Like, if you're an accountant, you have friends that go to an accountant, maybe they're going to try you out. Maybe they're going to help you build a clientele. And maybe it's not for their big, busy events, or you definitely don't want to take anything that's already been booked and confirmed, but maybe it's for just like a weekend rehearsal thing, or maybe it's a birthday where they're singing and playing guitar and you could just come help out, right? Like, these are all great opportunities to build what's it in sales. Your power circle, right? People you can call on and ask for help. Let them know what you're up to, and maybe they can offer you something or point you in the direction. Like, it's fine to help these people out. Just understand where you need to value yourself, and you need to value those around you, especially if they're helping you. So I hope you found this interesting. This whole month is going to be on how to get into being an audio technician. Most of it is going to be conversational, because there is a lot of very, very good YouTubers who go in depth in the individual techniques and all the actual theory. But I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not. I have a very hands-on experience and a very kind of tactical approach, and that's what I want to kind of share. And I am going to bring in some technicians who do have a lot of education and a lot of hands-on experience with the technical side to do some more explaining in some of the more in-depth episodes. But you can look forward to these once a week. I'm really excited to be doing them. I'm really excited to be venturing back into this field. I do have my first live gig booked again that I've kind of decided to pick up just because of this YouTube channel, so that'll be in May. I am going out to British Columbia with some friends to put on their first show in their hometown, and I'll be mixing, so I'll be having a vlog for that. And if you found this video informative, I would appreciate a thumbs up. It's the best way to help my channel and push this video around for other people hopefully to see. I do want to say thanks to our sponsor, Newer Lights, making my studio look beautiful. You can check them out in the link in the description box. I've got a 20% off coupon. If you use BEL20, you'll save 20% off of any of their products, and everything I've gotten from them has been so rock solid. It's done nothing but good for me, and we'll see everyone soon.